Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to Body Garage, the art of well-being. This is another Thursday that we bring you a very special conversation that it cuts across. It's not for a select few, because this is something to do with the questions that you keep asking about weight loss and weight gain. There are those who are interested in gaining weight. There are those who are interested in losing weight. If we can start with a few numbers here, it's estimated by the World Heart Foundation that about 2.3 billion children and adults are living with overweight and obesity. That's a significant number. And so 36% of these are in urban centers and about 22% are in rural areas. So why this distribution and why such numbers? And it's projected that this could be going up and up, especially in Africa as we are catching up with technology and the related. And our guest today is Dr. Njihia. Karibu sana daktari.
Thank you, Dr. Chips.
Pleasure to have you.
I'm happy to be here.
Asante. You know, as usual in our show, before we get into the meat of the discussion, we have light moments. I mean, our viewers would like to know who is sharing information with them. So please speak to us, speak to the people. Who are you?
So I'm Dr. B.N. Njihia, a minimal access surgeon, predominantly abdominal surgeries, but what I also like doing is wellness coaching. Currently based at the Avenue Hospital in Parklands, but we are part of a larger group of 3 hospitals and 18 medical centers, where we have single program multiple sites, which means if you're seen at any of our facilities, the care that you receive is the same, with the Parklands, Kisumu and Thika hospitals acting as a referral centers. I do coaching, as I said, in terms of wellness, where we change your relationship with food. And by extension, because food is the fuel that drives your body, we believe once we change your relationship with food, then everything else that follows, it just gets better and better. So that's a bit about myself.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much, Daktari. We get into it. You said change your relationship with food. If we can start there, what kind of relationship with food do most of us have on a day-to-day basis?
So let me start by, as human beings, a lot of the things that we inherit are passed on in the genes from our parents. And that determines how, even as babies, how we respond to food and how we expect to be fed. So if you look at a scenario about how we were brought up, many of us, mnaambiwa papa, lazima ukule, you know, you're fed every 2 hours. And so you find that with that kind of upbringing, your body is used to getting food, constant supply of food. So that's concept number 1. Number 2 is you must remember that our bodies are functional vessels. This body that we've been given is to do specific functions. And so your eyes are to see, your mouth is to eat, your muscles and your limbs are to get you from one step to another. But your functional vessel, this body, needs to get food as a fuel. If I was to say, it's like the jiko that requires firewood or charcoal to burn so that it can do the work that it's meant to do. And so our relationship with food is predicated on those 2 things. Number 1, how your body has been accustomed to handling food and how it was brought up to handle food. Number 2, the tasks that your body requires to do to be able to achieve the function that it wants to do. The example would be if you're a 35-year-old man who's working at a construction site or digging a farm day in, day out, your requirements are different from a 35-year-old, same build, same genetic makeup from a community perspective, but who is sitting at an office. Now, if you find if you look and try to marry those two things, those two aspects that we're talking about, our ancestors were brought up eating what nature was providing at certain points in time. So they were brought up in seasons of eating. There's some sort of cycle. So it is not that, for example, fruits would be available all through. Why? Because there'd be a season of drought, there'd be a season of plenty, there'd be a season where it's raining, but the fruits are not available to eat. Contrast that with now. What happens is fruits are available all through. And what determines whether you can have it is your access to the fruits, either through the farm or through buying at a supermarket. So our relationship with food then is based on, am I able to sustain or access these foods that I grew up knowing about? And number two, am I then able to meet the requirements that my body requires for the work I need to do? The big issue a lot of us have is the mismatch. That I sit in an office, I'm that 35-year-old who sits in an office, but I eat the same amount as the gentleman who is farming or working at a construction site. And so there's that mismatch.
All right. Now, somebody can ask the question that, what is weight? I mean, what is being overweight? What is obesity? I mean, I can be, maybe my height is maybe 1.7, 1.8. I have 80 kgs. Am I the same as somebody who is maybe 1.5 and 80 kgs?
We go back to the concept of our bodies being a functional vessel. Hii mwili imejengwa ifanye kazi fulani. For it to be able to do that, it needs muscle, it needs fat, it needs water, and to be able to walk around, it needs a skeleton, which is bone. Those are the components, or what we call the composition of our human body. Your weight is just the sum total of how much muscle, plus how much fat, plus how much bone, and how much water you have. And is that enough to allow you to walk around and do the tasks that you're meant to do? From a numbers perspective, you'd find that we usually want to, the easiest accessible metric is to look at how tall are you versus how heavy are you. But we in Africa like saying, oh, I was told I have heavy bones, and that's why I'm heavy. And so you find that, yes, you'd have the measure we call the body mass index, where it looks at kilograms per meter squared in our system. So how many kilos are you versus the square of your height in meters. But from a scientific perspective, and what we as healthcare practitioners like to draw on is what's your body composition like. And so using various scales that are calibrated for that, we want to look at what's your body fat percentage. Of that body fat, how much of it is what we call visceral fat. Around this midsection. And then apart from that, we also want to look at what's the quality of your bone, by looking at how heavy are your bones and how much muscle mass do you have. That allows us to say, if I'm looking, for example, at what would be a healthy body composition, let's look at fat. You'd have to ask, what is this body meant to do? For an athlete, the appropriate body fat composition can be said to be anywhere between 5 and 10%. For someone who is fit, so that's an athlete. For someone who is fit, who just needs to say, you know what, I live a healthy lifestyle, anything from 10 to 15% would be acceptable. And then once you get 15 to 20, 21%, and this now I'm talking about men, because for ladies it's a bit, we accept a bit of a higher. But if I have anything between 15 and 21%, then we would say that is acceptable.
It's a normal distribution now.
Normal distribution. And then you'd say, oh, if your body fat is at 21%, yeah, you are at an acceptable range. I might have gotten that a bit wrong. So we've said 5 to 10 athletic, 10 to 15 fit, then 15 to 21 acceptable. Yes, I got it correct. So you find that that's one parameter that we'd look at. Then you want to look at what, for example, is your body water composition, how much water is within your system. Anything between 50 and 69 is considered healthy. Again, these little composites make more sense than those of us who want to focus on what's my BMI. Because then that can be misleading.
So, many of us look at weight, being overweight versus being fit as, nimepima kilo na height, iko sawa. But sometimes you might, something like waist circumference, and so on and so forth. Well, now, the question now comes in mind that what happens so that we gain weight? Normally, like, let's say a child is born, most children are born within the acceptable weight. They grow, maybe some become chubby by 1 year, but sometimes they get back, blah, blah. But many of us, let's say by the time we're hitting teenage and then you leave university, you are very small. When you get out of university, the first year of working, and suddenly things are different.
Making it when you made it.
Yeah, so what happens? Yeah.
So our bodies love to be in balance. And that's why I keep going back to the concept of this functional vessel. Your body is doing a specific task. So when our body is in their craving for balance, it's a balance between how much energy do you need to take in and how much energy are you expending. In looking at, so your body wants to balance these two equations. The energy that you're expending, there are several factors that come in. There is what we call your resting energy expenditure. Yani nikikaa tu, if I'm seated like this, my eyes are closed and doing nothing. What is my resting energy expenditure?
You're still spending some energy.
Yes, even when you're sleeping, you're burning energy.
Yeah.
And that resting energy expenditure again has two parameters. I don't want to make it too complicated, but think about it. There's the energy you expend when you're at rest, and there's the energy that you expend when you're not at rest, what we call non-rest energy expenditure or activity-based expenditure. Those are two buckets that we need to fulfill. Now your body, to fill those, we have two glasses here. To fill that too, your body on this side will say, how much fuel do I need to be able to fulfill the energy requirements that I have? Your resting metabolism, your resting energy is a function of how much muscle mass you have, because your muscles burn more fat, they burn more energy than fat. And it's also a function of things like how much water you have, for example. Then you have your non-resting energy expenditure, which is a function of how much activity do you do. Now, for most of us, our issue is we might not have so much control of our non-resting as at now. Because
it's automatic.
It's automatic.
Yeah.
This is my genes. I inherited this bone structure, these muscles, that's me. But we have a lot of things we can do for our non-resting energy expenditure. We want then to be able to ask ourselves, if it's this activity-based energy expenditure, how much stairs versus lift do I do? Do I do any exercise? Because that will increase the amount of energy that I would require from food. Where we get a problem with is, and you mentioned about people who from high school and then they start going into the marketplace, because in high school you have mandatory things like PE, physical education, go around and jump up and down. And then number two, you're also growing, and so you needed to eat to be able to grow. Now, beyond the age of 25, there's not much growing that you need to do. And so you find that you maintain the same habits of eating that you had in your youth, but you're not as active as you were before. And so you're now eating at a surplus to requirements. And once you do that, your body doesn't like wasting things. It just says, oh, more food. They say more food for the store. So it comes and that food is converted to fat for storage. The second concept I like introducing, apart from this issue of balance, is is that our bodies, based on how our ancestors ate, actually developed mechanisms to know what to do with the food that you're giving it. So the concept of eating in seasons or cycles. So in summary, to just say, sometimes what you eat tells your body whether to store or whether it doesn't need to store any fuel energy sources. So how we eat determines as well whether we add weight or whether we release this weight. Yes.
All right. So we are going to take a break, and when we're back, we will pick up with the same conversation on what happens that eventually we gain weight and so on. So stay tuned.
Wanasema wasemao kuwa elimu ni bahari haiishi kwa kuchotwa. Wakati mwingi natangamana na wanafunzi madarasani, sio kama mwalimu bali kama nahodha kwenye kipindi cha tasnia ya elimu. Na iwapo utanikosa madarasani, basi utanipata nyanjani nikisaka habari zenye usawa, ufasaha na ukweli. Na iwapo utanikosa nyanjani, bila shaka utanipata studioni hapa nikisoma habari na kuendesha mijadala mikomavu. Mimi ni Andrin Kilemi, mpenzi wa lugha ya Kiswahili na elimu kwa jumla.
They say money makes the world go round. So let's slow things down a bit. Put things in perspective. From the markets to the streets to the stocks, we make the complex comprehensible. Join me, Hibak Said, on TV47 Business News for market insights like never before.
Welcome back. You are watching Body Garage, the art of well-being. I'm your host, Dr. Chepsi, and we're talking about weight loss and weight gain. So in our previous segment, we've discussed about what changes that happen, that somebody who was not initially having too much weight and now they have too much weight. And you said largely it's about the amount of energy in form of food that is taken in versus what is being used and expended, right? I don't know if you have additional information to that, but we would like to go and discuss about what are the effects of weight gain.
Okay. So we go back to our functional vessel. What happens when this functional vessel, our body, is carrying around more weight than it would want to carry? So there are certain things that I would say metabolic, things that are to do with hormones and aspects such as that. And then there are just things to do with just the volume of additional fat that you're carrying around. Because let's be clear, one of the things, why does your body like keeping fat? Because fat is a currency for energy for the body. In terms of when you burn fat, for the body, it gets the most amount of energy from 1 gram of fat compared to carbohydrate and compared to protein. Number 2, it gets the most amount of water when it burns fat compared to carbohydrate and compared to water. And so it's the currency that you want to keep, the body wants to keep the fuel in. And so when you feed it more than it requires, the energy that it requires, I say, oh, I have more fuel and I will store it in the form of fat. So let's talk about the effects that can be caused by fat being put in the wrong places.
Before we go into that, allow me to interject. about gaining weight. Let's talk about a few just quick questions. People will say that somebody who has gained weight fast, they are lazy. Is that true?
Lazy is a strong word. I would say gaining weight would have as much to do as, remember our energy balance? Either we are eating surplus to requirements and therefore we are not as active as we could be. However, there are other things that contribute to our body receiving signals to keep weight that are beyond just being active. So you would find that there are medical conditions that would lead someone to gain weight. So hormonal imbalances, medical conditions such as even diabetes and insulin resistance, because insulin, the work of insulin is to take sugar from the systems and distribute it along the cells. So if that changes, then that can also lead to weight gain. So I would say lazy is a strong word, but it also depicts the stigma that surrounds this. Those who gain weight and say it runs in the family, as we said, there is a role for how the genetics that have been dealt to you. There is a role so that's nature. There's a role for nurture, as I said, how you were brought up around food and then how your body then has come to acknowledge that it requires to interact with food. So there are all those permutations, but what I tell people is you are able to do something about that. You do not need to say, this is the cards these are the cards I was dealt and therefore I just need to live with it.
Yeah, in line with that, there's this famous quote that a doctor once told a patient who, oh, doc, the genes of having too much weight runs in our family. And the doctor said, no, the problem is nobody runs in your family.
I've had that one. Quite incentive, but as I said, there is a little of truth in that, yes.
All right. Now, the other thing is that many times in many homes, we blame cooking fat, cooking oil, as the cause of weight gain. Is it the real culprit or the culprit is something else?
Dr. Chepsi, that's a discussion that we can have a separate webinar on.
Yeah.
But in summary, the reason cooking fat or cooking oil has been labeled as bad is the processing of the same. So the process of hydrogenation and what that leads to the effects on the body, that's really the evil thing. Fat in itself is not bad. In fact, if you eat fat, even, I dare say, even animal fat, but eaten in a cyclical manner, in the right kind of context, can actually be healthy to some extent. Science does state that there is evidence that you don't want to eat animal fat and animal protein, and that has been linked with certain cancers. So yes, that is there. But in talking about the relationship of having this fat as a cause of weight gain, then I would dare say that you can actually eat fat and not gain weight. It is very possible.
So who is the main culprit in our tables, in our dinner tables at home?
Sugar. Sugar is the number one evil that is lacking in our tables, in the foods that we eat, in the meals that we have. Why would you have sugar in something like peanut butter? You have to ask yourself. We will tell you why. Because sugar, the craving for sugar is so evolutionarily strong that our bodies look out for places where they can get sugar. And what has happened is when you eat something that has sugar, your body says, that is good. That gives us quick energy. We need that. And so it stimulates you to eat more. And so now you go ahead and eat surplus to requirements. The additional sugar that you're taking that is above your requirements affects how your body interacts with insulin. Insulin gets dysregulated, so now you lose control of how energy is stored, and that cycle just begins repeating itself, and it becomes a slippery slope.
Mm-hmm. And so when we're saying sugar, we're not talking about the one we put in on tea only, right?
There are up to 65 different names of sugar. And so you find that we are not just talking about sucrose, you're talking about other forms, maltose, fructose, which is in fruit. For those of you who say, but fruit is healthy. Sugar cane is a fruit. Yes, sugar cane is not, would you put it in a fruit salad? Those are the questions sometimes we joke with our patients. But all sugar in its forms. We've gotten to the point where we're saying, we want to use sugar substitutes. Let us get it clear. What our bodies crave is that taste of sweetness, and we will look for it everywhere. So sugar substitutes can be touted as healthier alternatives, but I dare say the healthy alternative is to wean yourself off added sugars, and you'll find that your body, your taste buds recalibrate to the point that even what you thought did not have sugar, you discover water is sweet. And that's something that I encourage everyone to try out from time to time.
Sure. Let's move on and talk about the problems that come with gaining weight. Yeah.
So we touched on it in terms of, you can look at the effects of just having fat in all the wrong places, and then the effects that you'd have, the fat secreting hormones that then lead to other issues. So if we start with fat being in the wrong places, I'll think about three major things that I would want to highlight. Number one, the effect of fat along the airways and causing difficulties in breathing. So having issues such as snoring, and a lot of marriages have been ruined by partners who snore, and you have to hit someone all the time or push them off the bed. So snoring becomes bad. We can laugh about that, but snoring is associated with what we call obstructive sleep apnea, which means you get the point where you actually almost suffocating and stopping to breathe at night because of that. There's also something called obesity hypoventilation syndrome. So that's a whole spectrum of breathing issues. You also have fat within the trunks, so what we call visceral fat. So it encases your vessels, it encases your heart and organs within the body, and that leads your organs to have to do a lot more. Like your heart needs now to beat against increased resistance. Making it overwork is not necessarily good. The pressure of the fat in your abdomen makes your organs want to get out. They want to do prison break. So now gives you issues like reflux and hiatus hernias. And so there's just a lot of issues now to do with the gut. And then you're carrying weight that your body is not able to carry. So you get joint issues, things like arthritis. If you look at the hormonal effects of having excess fat, so things like gynecomastia in men. So people again make fun of moobs, men having boobs. That becomes an issue, gynecomastia. You have fat disrupts your balance of testosterone to estrogen. So estrogen is the predominant female hormone, testosterone is the predominant male hormone. Both genders have a bit of both. But now when you have increased fat, you have increased estrogen in circulation. And for men, what that means is it translates to things like reduced libido, erectile dysfunction, and a general feminization in men. So things that in effect then lead to adverse issues. Weight, as we talked about, once you start storing this fat, it influences how your body processes insulin, and therefore you now get into insulin resistance. That leads you down the cascade of non-communicable diseases. Diabetes comes into play, hypertension comes into play. You have lipid stores. Umemaliza stores nje ya mwili, now it goes into the vessels. So you now get things like atherosclerosis. all of this that we have talked about can be reversed if you start by releasing the weight. And predominantly, as you said, when you release the weight, you are releasing the stores. And why it's a good thing is your body will start releasing the stores in the form of fat. By the time it's coming to your protein stores, there are ways in which you can ensure that your body releases the fat and not the protein, not the muscle.
All right. So we hold the conversation there. We will take a break, and when we're back, we will continue the same conversation on the effects of being overweight. Stay tuned.
Wanasema wasemao kuwa elimu ni bahari haiishi kwa kuchotwa. Wakati mwingi natangamana na wanafunzi madarasani, sio kama mwalimu bali kama nahodha kwenye kipindi cha tasnia ya elimu. Na iwapo utanikosa madarasani, basi utanipata nyanjani nikisaka habari zenye usawa, ufasaha na ukweli. Na iwapo utanikosa nyanjani, bila shaka utanipata studioni hapa nikisoma habari na kuendesha mijadala mikomavu. Mimi ni Andrin Kilemi, mpenzi wa lugha ya Kiswahili na elimu kwa jumla.
They say money makes the world go round. So let's slow things down a bit. Put things in perspective. From the markets to the streets to the stocks, we make the complex comprehensible. Join me, Hibak Said, on TV47 Business News for market insights like never before.
Welcome back. Thank you for continuing to watch Body Garage. We are talking about the weight gain, weight loss, but largely weight gain and the problems that come with it. So in our previous segment, we talked about the effect of accumulation of fat in different regions. But to add more, there will be kind of specific effects of generally being overweight. For example, when somebody goes through the day, the productivity and the energy levels and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Okay. So specifically when we're talking about the effects of diet on weight and on energy regulation, our bodies are very interesting because they want to prioritize the energy sources that give them rapid gratification, quick gratification. And so based on how you eat, we've already talked about how it contributes to your weight, but how does how you eat contribute to your energy balance? So number one, your body can work with two fuel sources. It can work with predominantly burning sugar, predominantly burning fat. But it almost always prefers burning sugar because sugar is like, the example I give is like when you're trying to light a jiko, there's usually the charcoal, and then there's the papers that you use to light the charcoal. So sugar is like the papers that you're using to light the charcoal. They catch fire very fast.
Quick energy.
But it burns very fast, it's extinguished very fast. And that, getting the charcoal to light takes a lot more energy. Just takes time for it to ishike moto. But once that happens, it burns for longer. That's what burning fat would look like. Remember, for the body, burning fat is a second priority because that's its high currency for energy. Why do we get low energy, low productivity, especially when we have a lot of weight we are carrying around? It's because You have told your body, you know what, this high currency, do not burn my high currency. You depend on this rapid energy source that I'm going to feed you. So that's what happens. You wake up in the morning, you have your cup of tea or whatever beverage you're having, you have sugar. Sugar catches fire very fast, gives you energy, woo! But it also burns very fast. And so by 10 in the morning, you feel like I need a pick-me-up. That's where your 10 o'clock snack comes in. You have your 10 o'clock snack. By 1 o'clock, you're already saying we need to go for lunch because energy has been gotten in your system, energy has come down. And so one of the things that you find is that because of how you eat, your body has then put on this weight, has hidden away the fat because it says, no, don't burn this. This is my important currency. And so your body is getting used to getting quick fixes. And that's why you end up having, oh, I need to snack, or I need to have these things in my vicinity to be able candies in the we are okay. I wouldn't mention specific brands, but I need to have these sweets that I can just, because that's how you've conditioned your body. So that, for the people who are able to unlock that dependence from quick fixes and quick snacks, one of the earliest payoffs they have is enhanced mental clarity. Why? Because your body, your brain is no longer depending on the sugar in circulation to actually function. And you find that you have mental clarity for longer durations of time, translates to enhanced productivity. And here's the kicker. Science is now emerging that whatever you are able to have in your system actually affects your mental health. That we are getting to the point where we are saying, do you feel, or not to separate emotions from actual mental issues. Do you have depression? Diet can improve. Do you suffer from depression and anxiety? Diet can improve that. So we are moving away from, or rather we are enhancing our scope, because before we used to think it is the depression, it is the anxiety that would lead you to eat and then you gain weight. We are now finding the science is supporting the fact that it could possibly be that it is the food you ate that led you to gain weight and led you to get anxiety, depression, yes.
Wow, great. Now, we are going to skip that conversation because of time. Let's talk about how can somebody release the weight. You know, somebody's watching the show, or they might be somewhere. Somebody feels like they already have too much weight. I am not the way I used to be. I just need to do something, but I feel helpless. What are the available options on how to lose weight? Okay.
So first and foremost, we like using that term weight release, not weight loss, because you only lose what you want to keep. Oh, I've lost my keys, so I'm looking for my car keys. I'm going to get them. But you release that which you want to let go of willingly. Our bodies love balance. The first thing you want to do is to ensure that you are eating less than your requirement. And our human nature is interesting. We know what we need to do, but we want to rely on willpower. And willpower is like a muscle, it gets fatigued. So one of the things that we can do, number one, I say, is find a support group that walks this journey with you. People who will not judge you. And that's part of where wellness coaching comes in. But by and large, what are the principles you need to adhere to? Number one, ensure that you are hydrated, because the number one hunger is thirst. Because a lot of what our ancestors used to eat actually used to have water. But nowadays we eat pure dehydration. So my choice of snacks is like fried crisps. That is pure dehydration. You take it, it's already taking whatever water you had. You find that, remember what we talked about, the currency our body thinks in is, what is this that will give me energy and water? Our body knows that if I burn fat, I will get energy and I will get water. So if you're already hydrating, you're already telling it, look, I'm already giving you one of the outcomes that you want. So release this fat, and your body is willing to do that. So point number 1, hydrate. Point number 2 is to consider that health is equals to nutrients per calorie.
Okay, what does that mean?
Nutrient per calorie, these are different food A, food B. If I had a buffet table at the end of this room, and this queue, I give people a tablespoon of pure olive oil. It's a healthy oil. It's 100 calories for purposes of discussion. And here is an apple. It's a healthy choice. It's full of 100 calories as well. And I told this queue, everyone, kila mtu, kijiko. Everyone goes with 100 calories. Everyone here gets an apple, and they have to finish it before they get to the end. If you look at those 2 queues, the guys who've had this single tablespoon of oil will still feel hungrier than the people who had the apple. And the reason being, they might have gotten the same calories, but they did not get the same nutrients. So this is the case that you want to build for eating foods that are unprocessed. The more unprocessed they are, the higher health index they would have, because they would have more nutrients per calorie. A workable thing that people can do is ensure that you increase the vegetables that you take. The rawer, the better. If you can have them raw, better. If you are cooking them, we say you frighten them over the sufuria, and then you eat them. Why? Because that ensures that the nutrients are not altered. You are likely to get fuller based on that, and then you'd find that you eat less. The third is to ask yourself, which hunger is at play? And this is a different discussion we have with other people about the different types of hunger. But for many people, their emotions get the better of them. My boss has stressed me, I need to go break. Where we in our office block, we have a cafeteria, so we walk down and say, I just think I need a big serving of chocolate ice cream. And that makes you feel better. If you look back, chocolate ice cream is something you have equated to love. Maybe during Christmas or during when you've done well in school, your parent would say, you have done well, here is chocolate. Your mind knows chocolate equals love, equals security, so that's the food that you run to. I tell people, if you think you're hungry, you run through that checklist. Have I drunk water? So you drink water. Drink water. Drink a whole glass of water. Give yourself 5 minutes. Am I still hungry? Then you say, okay, if I'm hungry, I'm going to eat a whole bowl of sukuma wiki.
Vegetables.
But yes, but your body will say, no, we don't want sukuma wiki. Then you say, then I must not be hungry. Then you find that that's the checklist that tells you, oh, then it's probably emotional hunger. And so sometimes we coach people to ask themselves, really look down and see, which emotion is this? Is it stress? Is it some other, you're feeling like you're low and you need some help? So breathing exercises have been shown to work. And what is breathing exercises? We just tell people, okay, sit down, relax your shoulders, close your eyes, force yourself to smile, and then breathe in. 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds, breathe out for 5 seconds. Do that 5 times. A lot of the times you'll feel better already, and you'll feel that you don't have to eat. In any case, we've said, if you have to go eat, go ensure you've had vegetables, then you can have anything else. In terms of priority, you've had your vegetables, then have something dense in protein. So consider having either a bowl of beans, consider having a portion of fish. Then you see whether you can have some carbohydrate too.
The last bit.
The last bit is the carbohydrate, and with time you find that you don't even need that amount of carbohydrate. The final thing is consider eating in cycles, or conditioning your body to know that if it doesn't eat, it won't die. So prioritize air, prioritize water in that, and then food comes third. We've already talked about air, the breathing exercises. We've talked about ensuring you're hydrated. Now, when you get to food, consider taking breaks from food from time to time. I, for example, believe that intermittent fasting, what people think is a diet, is the way we are meant to eat. I recommend that start eating at 10, stop eating by 6, 7 if you must. And within that framework of eating, ensure that at any one time, vegetables have formed a predominant amount of your food. And during the day, you've been sipping water. I almost guarantee you will lose weight even without intentional movement.
So you're saying that the period of eating in the day is 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. The rest of the 24 hours,
you should
not.
So I'm very careful. I don't like being prescriptive. So I say intermittent fasting in whatever window works for you is ideal. Anything is better than nothing. But why I recommend 10 to 6, 7 a.m., or rather 10 to 6 is actually what I recommend, because that's an 8-hour eating window. It means that you tick several boxes. Number one, when you wake up in the morning, you have the ability you've come from a long fast, so you have the ability to hydrate and ensure that your body is actually hydrated before you start stuffing it with things. It also allows that by the time you're hitting 10 a.m., you've already seen sunlight. That has already kick-started your systems. You are no longer dependent on external things like coffee to kickstart your system. The third thing it ensures is that during the day you're able to consistently maintain your hydration, ensuring that whatever meals you're eating, the ratio of vegetables to other components is consistent. And then very importantly, it ensures that ukifunga kituo at 6 p.m., you are able to have 3 hours before you go to bed that you have not had anything. Why? Because digestion is a difficult, it's an energy intense process. You do not want to be doing that when your body is meant to be repairing. That's why I recommend that 10 to 6 eating window.
So for the families who are watching this, we can try to squeeze our dinners earlier than late dinners.
That's why I say 6 to 7, because Baba is working in town. Their house is in Syokimau, is in Thika. That commute in itself, you're likely to reach home at 7, at least reach by 7, have that meal together, and you find that by and large, your family gets healthy and healthy.
And no midnight snacks.
No midnight, lock the fridge if you must. But the top tip is do not have snacks in there in any case. In fact, the secret is this. As a family, if you decide that we are increasing our vegetable intake, you will not have space for many of those things. Those bundles of sukuma wiki will fill your fridge. Yeah. You won't have space for other snacks within your fridge.
As we come to the end, a question. What about exercise? Is exercise going to help us lose weight? What about surgery? So just those two very quickly.
Exercise is how you get from healthy to healthier. Diet gets you from unhealthy to healthy. Surgery, we keep it for people for whom this is a matter of life and death. So as a minimal access surgeon, I would say, if the doctor has told you you must lose weight by hook or crook, come to us. We have tailored programs where we have those thresholds where if your BMI, for example, is above a certain threshold, surgery does get you to a healthier bit. But remember, with surgery and with exercise, if you do not fix your diet, you will always circle back and come to diet. So exercise is brilliant. There are specific regimes that we recommend for different weight release goals, for different lifestyle goals, and they do have a role to play.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ali. We've come to the end of our discussion. Just mention to our viewers about the program that you run, the wellness program, and how people can get enlisted to. Wonderful. Yeah. So at the beginning we mentioned I do wellness coaching, and part of the program that I think the details shall be available towards the end, or you can reach out. They can reach out to you, Dr. Chebsi. We change your relationship with food. Essentially, what we do is we take you to a sequence of
processes that allow you to dive into what we call your food dialogue, really understand what your relationship with food is. We take you through a few weeks where we recalibrate your body's response to food. And you find that because we are walking this journey with you, by the end of it, you are in a family, a cohort of people with the same goals. You graduate into a wider family. We've now coached 450 plus individuals along this journey, and we call it food freedom, that you would have the freedom to determine what it is that you eat, because we find this coaching program or this coaching approach weans you off the need to use willpower. We said willpower is like a muscle, it can fatigue. We want to get to the point where your own body will tell you what foods it wants to eat and what foods it doesn't want to eat. It's really revolutionary stuff.
Yeah. And I'm one of the 400 people who has taken the program, and I can assure you with no doubt that with discipline and consistency, I think it does work. Yeah. So thank you so much, Daktari. You can find Dr. Njia on social media also. At Dr. BNJ, at Njehia BN on Twitter, Dr. BNJehia on LinkedIn. All right, great. How about TikTok?
Not yet TikTok. I need help.
Well, thank you so much. And you can also find me on my social media handles as you've been, and we will connect you to the right person to help you release the weight and get to where you want to be. For the men, maybe you want to release your trouser size from 42 to 30. It's possible. Thank you so much, dear viewers. Thank you so much, Daktari.
Thank you, Dr. Jobs.
Yes, asante, for sharing your experience and your knowledge to the people. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, thank you to all the viewers. We've come to the end of our discussion today, and we have talked about what happens that you eventually gain weight, and we have talked about on how you can incorporate practices in your daily life to release